welcome back for all the people attending this event. We are back from lunch. I hope that you have a great lunch, light lunch, or a super lunch, whatever you want to call it. I'm again Francisco Piccolini from Open Nebula Systems. I'm going to be your host for the data track, and you're watching a lot of talks today. So we continue on that mood of having more sessions. The next session will be started shortly. It's from Andrei Solntsev. I'm probably pronouncing it so bad. Apologies for that, Andrei. He's author of Selenite, a popular open source Java library for web mobile testing. He also had a black belt in Aikido, so don't make him too much math. So please be careful with that. Fan of extreme programming. I'm fan of pair programming, but it's extreme. It's okay as well. And he's like to give non-IT speeches. So welcome, Andrei, to this DevOps Pro Europe online. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. My name is Andrei Solntsev.
Solntsev.
Hard to pronounce.
I know. Especially for the people on the side of Europe, it's on the west side. It's a little bit complicated to pronounce sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna add the slides, and I will leave you the floor to you, so you can start delivering the talk. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So my name is Andrei Solntsev, which means the sun in Russian. And a couple of words about me. I'm a software developer from Tallinn, Estonia, and I'm working at company Codeborn. We use pair programming, test-driven development, agile, extreme programming, and so on and so on. And I also love open source. I did create few projects and do maintain some few other projects. And yes, I'm a fan of test-driven development, clean code, and so on. And among different projects, I created Selenite, which is a Java library for web tests, automated tests for mobile and web, which became quite popular. And here are some of my contacts, Twitter and site and so on. So, and this is Tallinn. The capital of Estonia. Yeah, we have quite a beautiful ancient city. So today I'm going to talk about commit messages in Git, and the plan is quite short. I will show some bad examples, which are obviously bad. Then let's talk about why it's important, why many people do underestimate it. Importance of commit messages, and then I will show some not so obvious examples of also bad messages, and if we have time we will do a little bit more practical exercise with rephrasing commit messages. So let's start with bad examples. You probably have seen images like this, this is some typical Git history of some typical project, which has in the beginning quite readable messages, and later they become shorter and shorter and less meaningful. As the project drags on, my Git commit messages get less and less informative. Probably it happens also for your project and for many projects as well. But okay, it's just a funny image. But when I took a look at some of working examples in my working projects, I found quite recent commit messages like this: refactored implementations, and the next commit is again refactored implementation, exactly the same commit message. Bad. Then I found few more commit messages like fixed incorrect logic, added logging, code cleanup, refactored configuration, and so on and so on. And the last one is especially unreadable for me: develop, merge, conflicts, resolve. What the hell? What should it mean? Nobody knows. But yes, this example seems quite trivial and obvious, and you're probably seeing that yes, it's obvious, but it's not a problem for me. In my case, yes, I don't write such commit messages. I'm going to show some real examples, including my own projects as well. So I sometimes also write some bad commit messages. Let's dive into code. and try to find something useful from Git history. This is one example of Play framework. This is an open source project that I did a separate talk about. In that talk, I showed one piece of really bad code, one piece of code that did try and many lines of code, and in the end just catch exception. And this especially funny message that, oh, well, probably it's compile optimizer. I hope so, especially funny message. And it just ignores this exception. So in many aspects, this is a really bad code, and it causes problems in production, in development, in testing, many problems. But currently, it's not the topic. Currently, the topic is to look into history and to watch why such a bad code was written. Let's dive into the code. This is a Play framework, source code. Yeah, finally, I found this place. This is a place. So our question is currently why it was written like this. Just probably if you know that people don't usually watch the whole history, like git show history or from command line git log, it would be too long. In many cases, if you have IntelliJ there or Eclipse, something like that, it's much more convenient to annotate this file, or in other words, use git blame, and it shows who was the last one who committed this line. And here we see the last one who committed this line was my goal is not to blame anybody, not at all. Everybody can make mistakes. This is not a focus at all. Focus is commit message. My interest is it clear from this message what happened and why we have to catch exceptions. And when I found it for the first time, I was really surprised, because this is a very short commit message that doesn't really say anything. We can even watch the diff. This is local variable, blah, blah, blah. Where is names enhancer? If we can watch the diff, and from the diff, we also do not see why we had to catch exception. So this is just a very bright example of bad commit message. It says just Scala changes, but nothing more. We cannot really get any knowledge from this. But one thing that I saw, that at that moment, we catched only, not all exceptions, but only one specific exception, no field exception. It a little bit explains what was the initial intention. They wanted to catch some situation when some field doesn't exist. Okay, but why then we catch all exceptions here? This was a problem for us in production. We can see that somebody other has changed this line later. And let's look at this commit message. Yes, I already know that at this commit, no field exception was replaced by more generic exception, which is generally a bad practice. But let's look into commit message. Does it explain why? This is our focus. And what says this commit message? It says quite a lot of IDs, ticket IDs, or some issues, and explains big fix for local variable enhancer. So again, pretty bad commit message, because it doesn't really explain what happened. What means big fix? Why so many tickets? And so on and so on. Doesn't explain. Okay, it a little bit mentions fixed local variable assignment, but so what? We don't really know what happened. Duplicate member exception bug fix. Again, it a little bit shows up what was the area to be fixed, but it doesn't really explain why do we need to catch all exceptions. So yeah, in that sense, it was bad commit message. My point is that later we had to spend much more time to fix it, to investigate what happens if I remove this catch, or what happens if I catch some specific exception. What happens? What goes wrong? This is the information that I really wanted to get from commit message, and I didn't get. Another example, really hot topic. Probably you remember that 2 years ago, or already 3 years ago, there was one major vulnerability in Java library called log4j. This vulnerability was called log4shell, and it was really a disaster. They found that many enterprise Java applications in the world were vulnerable due to this bug, like from day zero. So it was really a problem. And today, let's use this example to investigate. Is it easy to understand why such a vulnerability was created? How it happened? From the bug description, I know that it was somehow related to JNDI data source or something like that. So let's look into commit message of this project. This is log4j2, a very popular Java library for testing, for logging. Let's try to find something from history with name JNDI. And now you see how it's not easy to read commit messages, to read this Git history. Quite a lot of messages contain word JNDI, some replace, some change documentation, and so on and so on. So this history is quite good even because many commit messages have prefix doc, which says this is documentation. It means for me that I can ignore them and scroll down. Something was renamed. So this is quite good commit messages, yeah. And I know that the problem happened in December 21. Now we found the first commit that seems to make a quick fix for this vulnerability. Restrict LDP access via JNDI. That was the problem. LDPI access, whatever. And where it was restricted. So this commit message is pretty clear. Restrict access, clear. Store ID or ticket ID, clear. Some more additions, yeah, very clear. What it does, clear. But let's, through this file, let's find how it happened, this vulnerability. Looking at this commit, in the end, I found that the problem was with class JNDI manager. And in this commit, we see that usages of whatever JNDI were restricted at this commit. Okay, clear. Probably it helps us to find the very first commit that created this vulnerability. Yeah. So we now know that the problem with class JNDI manager. Let's dive into this class and let's watch the Git history of this class. And now we can find the very you can see that some of latest commits were like revert something, remove something, disable something. This was exactly to solve the problem with JNDI. Disabling JNDI by default. Yeah, very clear messages. But let's find out why it was created at all. This is a class that is cause of major security problem in the world. Why it was created? This is the very first commit where it was created. If I remember correctly, the vulnerability was here from the day one, from the very beginning. And what is the commit message? Commit message says add JNDI manager class for use with JMS. Is it good commit message? More or less, but not really, because it's not clear why it's needed, why it was needed at all. Also, it's not clear from this commit message how they wanted to use it, because this commit contains only one file, no usages, no tests, no documentation. In that sense, this is really bad commit. It has only one word, JMS, which probably shows intention. Okay, in this case, probably the problem is that this project was migrated from Subversion to Git, but still, the commit message could be better. Let's, just to summarize, this was a problem, link to the problem, and commit message just said that added in JNDI manager and was not clear why. Just to summarize. Let's go on with the second part. Why are commit messages important? Because the problem is that all people like know that, yes, I need to write commit messages. Yes, it's like required, but people usually don't pay really much attention to it. They just write, fix the tests, fix the docs, or something like that, but they don't pay attention to it. So why it's really important, and this is my primary goal for today, because software developer nowadays is not about writing text for computer. Like, these are brilliant words. No, nowadays software developer is about knowledge exchange between people. You are working in a team, you are making code changes for people, because of people, and you want actually other people to understand why you did it. You want other people to easily maintain your project, and so on and so on. In other words, it's what is really easy in our everyday work as a software developers, testers, and so on and so on. What it is easy, it's easy to change the code. It's not a problem. I can always add some if to anywhere to any code. I can easily add hundreds of lines of code, not a problem. What is really hard in our work is to understand what exactly should be changed. What if should I add? Where it should be added? If this if will break something, these are questions that are really hard. And we actually spend time and our brain resources to understand these things, right? If I see a bug in the code that I want to fix, I'm trying to understand, is it really a bug? Or probably it was intentional. And why this code that I see that seems probably stupid to me, why it was initially implemented like this? I want to get answer to all these questions. Yeah, and if I change this line of code, wouldn't it make things worse than before? These are important and hard questions in our everyday work, right? And how to get these questions easily? There are many ways how people in IT companies or in all companies try to exchange knowledge between people, between teams. There are a few popular means. First of all, documentation, Confluence, Jira, Wiki, sharing Word documents, sharing information using emails, right? And also comments in code. People often say that you need to write comments in code, which for me is generally a bad idea. And I will explain why. There are also underrated means that are much better for me and that are not so popular. They are the code itself. The clean code is code that is expressive. Names of variables, methods, tests, and so on should express the intentions, should explain what this code does without having to need any, having to write any documentation or Confluence and so on. Unit tests must explain how this code works, what it does, what is expected result. And the most underrated one is commit messages. Commit messages should always explain why it was changed. So in some sense, modern software development project is like social network. Yeah. And all these ways are needed to communicate between people. And the most popular ways are actually bad because become obsolete. Documentation becomes obsolete very quickly. They usually are not up to date. And there are other troubles. All this documentation usually contains too much info. Very often it contains controversial info, and usually it's written not for you. When I try to find any answers from Confluence, it's really hard usually because Confluence contains too much data. Most of it's not interesting for me. It's not useful for me. And that's why searching takes time and I cannot always find the right answers. This illustration shows what happens when you try to develop all the time getting information from Confluence or documentation. This is like the same when you try to write the bus, all the time reading documentation, how to write the bus. It's not effective, right? you need to get answers faster. You need to quickly get answers to all your questions. And this is a part where these things are good, and especially commit messages. Sorry, once again. Yeah, commit messages always contain true. They cannot lie, never. So how should look like proper commit messages? Let's start from a very like non-IT example. If you ever thought how typical police press release looks like, they pay attention how to write press releases. They are professional in that sense. A typical press release looks like this. Very simplified, but like this. The header looks like this. People don't swim. There is also the first paragraph, which says police warns water is full of dangerous bacteria, avoid swimming. And if you read further, there is also some explanation, like why. It's too hot this week, that's why the temperature was increasing, blah, blah, blah. Bacteria started growing, blah, blah, blah. Medicine cannot fix it quickly, blah, blah, blah. So these are part of typical press release, like header, or in our terms, subject. This part explains briefly what happens, what you need to know. And this part explains some details, some additional information, why, what really happens in details, and so on. Why it's important? Because police knows that most of people will not read all this text. Most of people will read only header. And that's why they need to show the most important part in the header. Some percentage of people will start reading and read probably the next paragraph, and only few who are really interested in the things will read the last part. Another example from real life, when like man comes to a woman, he says, "Marry me." This is a little bit controversial example because in real life it happens differently usually, but still, which would be the most practical and clear message from my opinion? The very first subject line says, "Marry me." Second line adds a short explanation. Yeah, like we will live together and share expenses, and we're not going to have children. This is a very quickly contract or intention, what happened, and the last part explains some details, like some additional problems. Maybe not everyone is interested in these details, so maybe many customers will read on this title and quickly accept the suggestion. These examples show principles which are also applicable for commit message. The very first line should be short and should quickly explain what happened. This is a subject. Let's take this last example from Log4j framework. Commit message should say disable the lookup by default. Very clear, very short, understandable. If some people are interested, then they can dive into details and go to the bottom, like, and read the next part, which a little bit explains why or what happens. Because change the lookup caused huge security vulnerability, blah blah blah. That's why we should disable it. And if some people are even more interested and want to dive into details, then they can read next chapters, saying some more details and why it happened and some historical reasons and so on. So the point is that the first line should explain briefly what was changed. Speaking about this first line, subject line, people often struggle with wording. How exactly should I say? When I change it, when I disable GNDI lookup, should I write into commit message like this commit disables GNDI lookup? Or should I write I have disabled GNDI lookup? Or should I write disables GNDI lookup? Or disabled GNDI lookup? Or GNDI lookup was disabled by me? or had to be disabled, or whatever, or had to disable during the lookup. So all these wordings are used by people. And if you think a little bit, they all create a hassle. That's why a best practice is to use the shortest form of these words. The shortest form is in English is verb, just plain simple verb. Just say disable during the lookup. Not I disable, not it was disabled, not this commit disables, but just very simple minimalistic word, disable during the lookup. There is a brilliant post explaining how to write commit messages. Let's briefly go through these lines. Not of them are really important for me, but some are. Like number first, split subject and body with blank line. This is that I already explained. Subject is header, is short line, and body is like some explanation. Body can contain multiple chapters if you want. Limit subjects to 50 chars. This is not important for me. Nowadays, monitors are wider. Start subject with capital letter. Not important for me. Don't put dot in the end of subject. Again, minor, but again, dot creates hassle. It's not really needed. This is important. Start with imperative verb, like add button, disable GDI lookup, create report, imperative verb. The very simple verb. Verb body, not important. And the most important part, in the body, explain what and especially why it was changed. And maybe optionally, you can also explain how, like some technical details, but this is optional, only if you need it. Let me give some hints for commit message. People often struggling because they don't know what exactly to say. I just renamed it. What should I explain? Why? It's clear. Some hints. You can describe motivation for this change. Why you decided to rename? Why? You can describe difference with the previous behavior. Like if you added report, but previously there was also report. What exactly was changed? And one very good practice that I personally like is just take a name of the test you added in this commit or change it, and just copy paste this test into commit message. This often works. And if you are going to commit files without any test, bad practice. Stop and think twice. Also, remember that I already mentioned it, that your commit message should answer the question why. This is the most important question, why you did it. And let me emphasize it. You should answer not just the question why, but you should answer the question, what the fuck? What the hell you did? Production is broken after a commit. Tests are broken after a commit. We are all struggling after a commit. Why did you this change? It's a little bit dramatic, but think about it. When you do commit, imagine that something really bad happens because of this commit. And this doesn't mean that you shouldn't change anything. No, but you should explain why. Why do you did it? Like your intention at that moment. Just fix it. Just write it down. And let me remind that once again, the goal of commit message is to give fast answer, because people can get slow answer from documentation, from Confluence, and so on and so on. But people want to get fast answer to work effectively, like to change code quickly and effectively. That's why they need to get fast answer from commit message. And it should also give easy answer, because yes, again, people can read long Confluence documentation the whole day, and in the end they will get the answer, but they should get much easiest answer from the commit message. And with your commit message, you should try to minimize the risk of misunderstanding, of risk of error. It must be so much clear that people definitely will understand it correctly and will not make a mistake. Another problem with commit messages is that people often are afraid of redundancy. People often think that, well, why should I explain my motivation in commit message if this motivation is already explained in Confluence, in Jira task, and so on, in comments. And yes, this is true. These things are partially duplicate each other. Commit messages, tests, variables, comments and codes, Jira ticket, Confluence. Yes, these things a little bit duplicate each other. This is true. But let me emphasize that this is not a problem at all. This is not bad at all, because the things describe their texts like in a little bit different ways and with different goals. That's why it's not a problem at all that they a little bit duplicate each other. They do it differently, and it really helps in our work. Okay, let me bring some examples of not so obvious changes, not so obvious bad commit message, when people don't really know what to write. This is some real example of real project where I see commit called fix texts, and after 5 minutes I again fix commit fix text. And it seems to be obvious. If I just fixed some texts, what should I describe? Like, it's obvious. Should I spend time like to the explanation? And I will just bring some hints again. Let's think that somebody could ask you, why did not you fix all the text with one commit? Why did you need to commit the first change, then spend 5 minutes and commit again? Why not all at once? What happened really there? You could also think that you could answer the question, why you think that second change was better than the previous one? The second text was better than previous one. Why? Who said? Like, the answer could be story ID, Jira ID link to some Excel file or whatever, or customer's email, whatever. Because yes, actually we often had problems that the first variant actually was better than the second, and somebody mistaken again and committed the wrong text, took from wrong files or whatever. And just imagine that somebody comes and says, hey, what you did, the first text was better, why did you change it? Just imagine. And yeah, so you try to foresee all these questions and answer them in the commit message. Not too long. It doesn't mean that you need to write long messages. No, short, but still. And to think about it, I created a method which is called barista method, which should help in this case. Let's imagine that you are working on renaming text, for example, and after every commit, you go to a coffee, and there is barista near the coffee machine, and barista asks, "Hey, what's up? What you have done with the last commit?" And you answer, "Well, I fixed text." Again, okay. After some time, you are doing some work, and after 5 minutes, you have committed next changes, and you created also commit message fixed text. You go to coffee, and barista asks again, "Hey, what now you have done?" And you say again fixed text, like you just reproduce the same commit message. And barista asks, "Bro, wait, you already did it last time. What was really changed?" And you start explaining him, "Well, actually last time I realized that I used a wrong Excel file. I copied the wrong text. Actually, I made a mistake the first time." For example, or you might have some other explanation, of course. And yes, gotcha. This is exactly the details that you could mention in the commit message. What was really changed compared to previous commit? Again, once more, in commit message, please give context. Please say what and why was done, and try to minimize misunderstanding, or what could happen with somebody who will read this commit message. And let me bring one, I guess, last example. Commit message, which is very, very popular and ultimately wrong. This is revert commit. This is a very typical example of many projects when you look into the history of the project and you see some commit saying revert blah blah blah. And Git or IntelliJ can even automatically generate such a commit message. Yeah, and when you see the diff, you see that previously we used version 7, now we used version 6, and commit message says that this reverts commit blah blah blah. For many people, it seems that pretty obvious. We reverted, we downgraded. So what to explain here? But actually, if you think, it's very, very important place where actually you should explain why. Actually, nobody knows why did you revert some previous commit. It's very important to understand why did you revert? What happened? What actually should be said in such a commit message that reverts something? What actually should be said? Why it was reverted? Why did you revert? What was the price for the revert? I mean that this commit, this previous commit, was created for some reason. It brought some feature or some fix, or it brought something useful to the project. Why did you revert it? So did you lost this feature? Did you lost this fix? What was the price? If I upgrade again, this is probably the most important part. Me as a next developer who wants again to update in PM, in this case, I want to know what happens, what gets broken if I upgrade in PM again. So what was that problem when you had to revert it? And yes, I want to quickly get the answer. Probably that reason is already disappeared, and I can upgrade it again, or I still cannot. I want to get quick answer for these questions. All this information could be in this revert commit. We have quite small time. Probably let's keep some more examples here. And I will continue with the slide. I found very great quote from Vlad, which is a Java champion and great blogger. Once he wrote this post: "The Git commit log is where developers do their confessions." I really liked this explanation. This is some example of my personal project, Serenite, that I wrote here, and like I'm proud of it because this is a brilliant example of good commit message. Why I think it's good? Because again, header says clearly and briefly what was fixed. Avoid taking screenshots twice. Clear why, and here is explanation, like my confession. Here I'm saying that, well, actually it was a bad solution, actually a hack. And here I am explaining that actually good solution would be like this, but this is more complex, it takes time, cannot do it this time. So the whole point of my talk is not that you are not allowed to mistake. Sure you are, we all mistake, why not? But you are, you should explain this. If you're not sure if this is a good solution, explain it. If you think that you should change it because of full, explain it, just mention it. What was the intention? What was the reason? If you have 5 minutes, I would try to do this practical example exercise. To squash or not to squash? There are two kinds of people. One group of people prefers to squash all commits of a branch to merge to a single commit. Even GitHub suggested as one of default options. And there are people who prefer not to squash commits and merge all the commits from all the history to leave it at it. So use the full history. Both approaches have some problems. If you squash all commits, you might lose some important information. And in case if you never squash commits, you in some kind you disrespect your colleagues. You are spamming them. You are adding to Git log, Git history too many of minor changes, some fixed tests, fixed texts, and so on and so on. And what is my way? What I suggest? I suggest to do rebase. And always when you finished some work on some feature branch, on some feature, and you think you are ready to merge this branch, please review this branch. I usually do it. I review all this branch, and I try to keep independent changes in separate commits and fixes without own value, like fix tests and so on, to squash them to a single commit. And of course, update commit message of each of these commits to make it readable. Yeah, in other words, makes your colleagues happy and show respect to them. I would ask if we have some time or we have lots of questions.
No, we have some time. You have a couple of 3 minutes, something like that. So if you want to go and practice, do some demo and all that. I'm not seeing questions in the chat or in the quick. Yeah, I have one here. Oh my.
Sure. Yeah.
Jakub Rosa is asking, what about when we can only verify changes with CI and we have to do very many small commits? It is impossible to test it locally because everything is behind several firewalls, and only from the pipelines we can verify this change. Often during such commits, we change only one parameter and test if it will eventually work. For example, we are not sure if some syntax will work correctly, for example, in Ansible or GitLab.
Okay, thank you for a question. First of all, this is a really organizational problem. If you cannot run tests locally, this is a huge problem. You need to solve it independently of Git and commit and messages. You need to be able to run tests locally, definitely. This is very important. But still, getting back to the question, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to show, that initially when you are working on feature branch, you can create many commits. Try this parameter, try to rename variable, whatever. But in the end, when you are ready to merge this branch, I recommend to do interactive rebase. What it means, this is a feature of Git or IntelliJ IDEA that allows you to review all these commits and to put some of them into a single commit and rename commit message, which allows you to create a nice Git history. This is exactly what I wanted to try. Okay, probably it takes time. Okay, let's assume that I created some small commit and committed. Let's assume that I created another commit, fixed something, tried another parameter, did it. Let's assume that I created a third parameter. This is some param2, committed also. And probably I get back to the first line, to the first file, and I realized that, well, I did break the tests. Probably I wanted one minor thing, test at this point, fix test. Something like that. So now we have history of 4 commits. And for example, many of them are like tried parameter this, tried parameter that, and so on and so on. So now I am able to finish my work so that I'm not going just to push, but I want to make this history great again. So let me call git rebase. Oops, git rebase. And this is a very important part. This is name of main branch. And very important part to select here, interactive. This is a git interactive rebase. Very important feature. So I enable this interactive mode, click rebase. And what I see now, I see a list of my commits that are going to be pushed or to be merged. And I can now reorder of them. For example, this one was the fix for the very first commit. This means that I can move it up And I can even click option fix up. And fix up means that this commit will be merged into this commit. This was fixed like for this commit. And probably I might also realize that these two commits change like very similar thing, probably. So I also might be score them. So instead of those two commits, I created one commit and I renamed it. I have renamed this commit. And now, if I have a conflict, then I have a very readable, clear Git history with independent commit. Everyone having a good commit message. This is my way.
Cool. Cool. No, very clear, very clear. I think it's clearer than the usual. And I was going to ask stuff, but the thing is that, yeah,
sure.
I was, but we are running out of time, to be honest, Andrei. And thing is super interesting. I think that people can reach you over Twitter, or what do you prefer? The social network that you prefer to use? I don't know if it's Twitter or LinkedIn.
Sure. I have some contacts. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Twitter. Okay. You have it here. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Very useful for people that are doing programming on their daily basis. I know people that are making lame comments on code, so that's another talk that you can think about it. Not only on commits, also on during the code, which is even worse. Thanks a lot. We are running completely out of time, but it was super useful.
Sure.
Thank you for being here with us, participating in the DevOps Pro.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell the attendees that we have the next session in around 13 minutes. It will be the next session with Muhammad Shahmid. So stay tuned, or you can watch the rest of the DevOps Pro agenda in the Pine event. So thanks again, Andrei. Hope to see you in other events. And
sure,
for the people attending, we'll be back soon in 10 minutes. Bye-bye.
Bye.